The movie begins with a revelation about a project that focuses on searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. Then we're introduced to a young girl named Sil, who wakes up inside a lab chamber and is shocked to see all the scientists examining her. The leader of these scientists, Xavier Fitch, reluctantly orders a couple of men to bring in a gaseous cyanide so that they can kill Sil. The process begins, and Sil pleads for mercy, but it's of no use, so she instinctively breaks through the glass and escapes the facility after hurting the security. A hectic chase scene follows, but Sil eventually manages to escape from her captors after jumping in front of a train. She's briefly scared by a random man at the station, but she shows off her superhuman strength and kills him by throwing him against the wall. Xavier and his men continue to search for Sil as she makes her way into civilization. She begins to observe human behavior such as shopping and talking, after which she makes another trip with a stolen piece of luggage. Sil explores her new surroundings and is able to register new information quite easily. As time starts to run out, Xavier decides not to alert the authorities and recruits a team of scientists to help him track her down. We see Sil experiencing nightmares, and then she panics after noticing her alien body manifesting in front of her to create a cocoon. Meanwhile, Preston Lennox and Dan Smithson meet with Stefan Arden and Laura Baker. The team gets acquainted with one another, and then Lennox reveals himself to be an assassin. Dan questions his intentions, but Lennox mocks his claims of being a psychic. Meanwhile, the train conductor finds Sil's cocoon and is attacked by an alien hybrid who has now achieved her adult form. Back to the team, Xavier arrives and briefs everyone about how the whole saga started, with a signal SETI had received from outer space. The aliens had supposedly given humans a DNA sequence that they managed to merge with humans, and they used that to then create various specimens, out of which they managed to harvest Sil. The initial results were promising as she had displayed amazing signs of growth, but then after months of research, they decided to abruptly kill her, and that's when things spiraled out of control. The team is confused about their role in all of this, but then Lennox clears the air by exposing it to be a search and kill mission. Now we see Sil, who's turned into a fully mature woman, as she makes her way through Los Angeles. Meanwhile, the team gets to the train and witnesses the broken down cocoon as well as the dead conductor. Dan states that Sil is afraid of her surroundings, and the others are quick to figure out that she's not a little girl anymore. Sil quickly enhances her social skills and is able to communicate with humans, and she also purchases new clothes for herself. After setting a perimeter around Los Angeles, the team checks into a hotel and debates their next plan of action. Even Sil checks into a local motel and watches some TV in order to better understand humans. Laura convinces the team to create and study an organism created solely with Sil's DNA sequence, but they face a technical issue during the process. Lennox volunteers to help Laura with it, but things go south very quickly when the organism starts to grow at an alarming rate. Lennox messes up when he drops one of the bolts, so Laura is unable to seal it. Seeing this, Xavier activates protective measures and refuses to open the door so that Laura and Lennox can get out. The duo manages to burn some of the creature's body parts, but it manages to survive and grows even further. The rest of the team gets into a fiery argument with Xavier, and Stevenson uses the opportunity to open the door and allows our heroes to escape from the room. The defense protocol kicks in, and the creature is burnt to a crisp. Later, Sil's mating instincts kick in, so she goes to a nightclub in search of a man. She swipes her credit card at the motel, and this alerts the team, so they rush to the location immediately. At the club, a woman tries to steal a man from Sil, so she follows her into the washroom and kills her to take out the competition. Meanwhile, the team reaches her motel and learns about Sil going to the club, but it's too late for them now, as she's already found a mate and left with him. However, just as they're about to get intimate, Sil's senses tell her something odd is up with this man, and asks if she can leave as she's had a change of mind. The man doesn't take too kindly to this and forces her to stay with him, so she kills him with her tongue in a form of defense. Lennox and the others reach the house, but Sil has already left by now. After some thorough investigation, Laura realizes that Sil is searching for a mate, but she rejected her victim because she could sense that he was diabetic. Later, as Sil wanders around the city, she gets into a car accident and is saved by a man named John, who takes her to a nearby hospital and pays for her bill. However, the doctor treating Sil is shocked to see her shoulder recovering so quickly in front of his eyes. He wants some questions answered, but gets distracted as she leaves and takes John along with her. He does manage to alert the team about what he saw, and they track down John's address. However, they can't seem to get through to him, as Sil has already begun her seduction. John is a bit hesitant to move things forward so quickly, and his delay causes Lennox and Laura to show up before their mating can begin. Sensing imminent danger, Sil transforms into her alien avatar and kills John instantly. Lennox and Laura sneak around the back, but are only able to witness the aftermath of her actions. Xavier and the others arrive to inspect the area while Sil watches from a distance. Now that she's realized she's being hunted, Sil leaves the scene and kidnaps a woman to take her clothes. However, she comes back to John's house and reads Xavier's mind, and through that she can figure out what he's planning next. Lennox and Laura bond for a bit before going back to the club, and then Sil has another nightmare, after which she wakes up next to her victim. She decides to leave a fake trail by switching her thumb with that of a tied-up woman. Then she stocks up on fuel and takes her victim with her to the nightclub. The team waits for Sil at the venue, but Steven grows frustrated with this wild goose chase and goes out to get some air. That's when Dan senses something is up and eventually bumps into Sil as he also heads outside. Dan immediately alerts the others, and this is exactly what Sil wanted, as she proceeds to lead them on during a hectic chase scene. Once she spots an electric booth, Sil tries to trick everyone by crashing the car into the booth by jumping out just in time for the only casualty to be her victim. The team finds Sil's decoy thumb, and Xavier is fooled into thinking the burnt-up body inside the car is Sil. He decides the mission has been accomplished, but Lennox senses something is fishy. Meanwhile, Sil dyed her hair to change from blonde to brunette so that she can't be recognized. At the club, the rest of the team has a nice time, while Lennox continues his doubts that Sil is dead. His suspicions lead to an awkward encounter that messes up his dance with Laura. Then, Steven proceeds to get the drunk man while Laura goes to bed. However, Dan encourages Lennox to go after her as he senses her desires. Lennox follows his advice and then runs into Sil in the elevator. He can't recognize her, and Sil tries to use her advantage to mate with him, but Lennox goes ahead to Laura's room and she lets him inside. Sil becomes jealous when she hears them making love, so she attacks the housekeeper and steals her keys to unknowingly sneak into Steven's room. Back at the club, Dan goes to bed, and Steven strikes out with some women, so he also heads back. He is surprised to find Sil inside his room, but he doesn't recognize her, so she seduces him and manages to mate with him successfully. Dan starts to get some premonitions and figures that Sil is still alive. So he inspects the rooms and hears her with Steven. He alerts Lennox and Laura about it, so they tell Xavier as well. However, the deed is done, and after sensing the baby growing inside her, Sil turns into her alien form and kills Steven. She escapes from her room before the others can get to her, so Xavier and the team decide to chase her down before she gives birth. They reach the basement where they find another victim, so they follow the trail into the sewers. The team splits up during their search due to Xavier's impatience, but Dan notices something in the water that slowly follows him. Suddenly, Sil pops out and kills Xavier in an instant. Now, Lennox and Laura both team up with Dan and rely on his instincts to locate Sil. He uses his psychic abilities to identify her birthing zone, and then he leads the others to a cave with an oil pit. They inspect various areas, and Dan follows his instinct to spot something by a ledge. He notices Sil's baby boy, but is unable to identify him, so he tries to get closer. However, the baby instinctively attacks Dan, and Laura calls out to Lennox before she gets stuck in the oil pot. Dan is able to use his flamethrower to kill the baby after he transforms into his alien avatar, and this angers Sil, who goes on a rampage. She spots Lennox and chokes him with her tentacles, but he manages to break free after a quick struggle. After that, he shoots Sil into the fire and she begins to burn. There's one last scare when Sil tries to drag Dan down with her, but Lennox blows her head off with his shotgun and the drama ends once and for all. Now we see Lennox, Laura, and Dan making their way out of the sewer, but then a rat finds one of Sil's tentacles and chews on it, thus transforming into a monster as well. And that's the end of the movie. Please check out these videos and playlists on your screen and subscribe for more content.